Welcome to A News, I'm Katie Wilson. Here are the top stories for today. Trump dismisses Ukraine concerns and says he may meet Putin this month. European Union agrees on 16th package of sanctions against Russia. Fierce clashes continue in Khartoum as Sudan faces escalating humanitarian crisis and political deadlock. US President Donald Trump says he may meet Russian President Vladimir Putin this month. At a press conference, Trump responded probably when asked if he still expected to meet Putin before the end of this month. His remarks followed US and Russia discussions on Ukraine in Riyadh on Monday. Trump dismissed Ukraine's concerns about being left out of the talks in Saudi Arabia. However, he criticises Kyiv for being unable to reach an agreement with Moscow in the last 3 years. Trump added he would not oppose European nations sending peacekeepers to Ukraine.
And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their side.
Sir, do you support stationing European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine as part of this peace deal?
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine.
Even if the Russians are
I mean, I know France has mentioned it, others have mentioned it, UK has mentioned it, but if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all.
US President Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, has arrived in Kyiv Wednesday morning for discussions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The visit comes after talks between the United States and Russia in Riyadh this week over the war in Ukraine. Kellogg previously met with Zelensky in Munich last weekend and says his mission is to listen. Kellogg says he'll relay these concerns back to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. On Monday, he said that no one will impose a peace deal on Kyiv. The European Union has agreed on a new sanctions package against Russia, aiming to increase pressure on Moscow while supporting Kyiv. The 16th round of sanctions targets Russia's aluminium industry, tightens oil export restrictions, and blacklists 13 more banks and 73 shadow fleet tankers. It also includes a phased ban on certain Russian aluminium products. Endorsed by ambassadors from all the EU's 27 countries, the package extends to sanctions against individuals and companies aiding Russia's war effort. Germany heads to the polls this Sunday after a brief but intense election campaign, dominated by debates on immigration, security and economic challenges. With just days to go, public discontent is being shown through protests, economic concerns and growing calls for change.
Germans have been voicing their frustrations and concerns ahead of the federal election on February the 23rd. Right now, faith in the government is at its lowest point in over a decade, having fallen to 50% in 2024, according to Gallup's poll. Over the weekend, Munich saw a massive demonstration with 200,000 people protesting against the far-right Alternative for Germany party and its migration policies. Economic concerns are also a major worry. Many Germans are frustrated with the ruling traffic light coalition with the Social Democrats, Greens and Liberals. In Bavaria, farmers worry that any change in policies will put their livelihoods at risk.
We've made investments that will take 20 to 30 years to pay off, and it just isn't sustainable that everything is then suddenly different every 5 years, referring to elections. There is no carpentry business, dairy business, no agricultural business that can survive this. This has to stop, and we need to get rid of this bureaucracy.
The growing economic divide is another concern as more people rely on food banks. Last year, there were 975 of them in the country, according to Statista.
What I would like from the next election is that the gap between rich and poor is narrowed, that the people who come to us get more help and relief, and in an ideal world that we wouldn't be needed anymore.
Living standards have reduced in Germany, according to Gallup, which says the percentage of people who say their situation is improving dropped sharply from 42% in 2023 to 27% last year. The poll also shows that at a time of global uncertainty and regional turmoil, Germany's standing in Europe is slipping. The choice voters make on Sunday will shape the country's future, influencing its leadership and direction for years to come.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived at the Tel Aviv District Court to take the stand in his long-running corruption trial. Netanyahu arrived with his legal team after he was ordered to testify in the 2019 indictment in 3 cases, involving gifts from millionaire friends and allegedly seeking regulatory favours for media tycoons in return for favourable news coverage. He has denied any wrongdoing and has pleaded not guilty. Netanyahu is Israel's first sitting prime minister to be charged with a crime. Hamas says it will release 6 living hostages on Saturday and 4 deceased on Thursday. It's after Israel and Hamas have begun indirect negotiations of the second stage of the ceasefire deal, aimed at releasing the remaining 64 hostages. This next phase is being mediated by Egypt and Qatar in Cairo.
Israel and Hamas have begun a new phase of indirect negotiations after a Cairo-brokered ceasefire deal facilitated by Egypt and Qatar. This agreement includes the release of 6 living and 8 deceased hostages in the coming days, as well as the release of Palestinian prisoners in Israel. This new phase will take place in 3 stages. On Thursday, 4 deceased hostages will be handed over by Hamas, followed by 4 more next week. On Saturday, 6 of the remaining live hostages will get to return to their families. Officials have not yet disclosed the names of those who've died who are set to return. Among those to be released on Saturday alive will Elia Cohen, Tal Shoham, Omer Shemtov and Omer Wenket, who were taken during the October 7th attack, and Hisham al-Sayed and Avera Mengistu, who crossed over into Gaza independently of each other around a decade ago and have been held since then.
My brother Elia Cohen is kidnapped from the party in the 7th of October, and we really miss him.
We need more efforts to bring them back alive. Returning hostages in coffins is not a victory.
For months, families have been calling on Israeli leaders to intensify negotiations. Many have also appealed to the international community for support.
All the leaders need to take act. They need to do more pressure on the other countries and more pressure on Egypt and Qatar and the US to build a satisfaction agreement to take the old hostages out.
We're dealing with a very cruel enemy, and we shouldn't leave anyone behind in Gaza. This is for sure. This is everybody in Israel understand.
The first phase of hostage releases in November 2023 returned dozens of people, but many, like 40-year-old Tal Shoham, remain in captivity. His family is still waiting for news.
My father was murdered here. Nothing that I can do will change that. For the rest of my life, this tragedy will be with me. But we can save Tal, and we can save so many of the hostages.
His kids and his wife and the parents and the whole family is waiting for him to be home, safe and alive.
So far, 19 Israeli hostages have been returned in exchange for the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Continued negotiations are expected to be tough because they include issues such as the administration of post-war Gaza, where there are large gaps between the sides.
Palestinian business owners in the Jabalia refugee camp struggle to revive their daily activities in the harsh conditions. However, despite these challenges, some business owners share a common hope for peace and stability.
Despite the destruction in northern Gaza, Palestinian business owners in the Jabalia refugee camp are doing their best to rebuild and revive their daily activities. From restaurants to bakeries, entrepreneurs are facing immense challenges, yet they remain determined to continue their work.
The place where we are, as you see, I used to have a floor here and a floor upstairs. We had 200 tables. From 200 tables, only one table remained, and here it is broken. We only have this one. I had 12 workers. Today I'm alone at this place because the work became bad. People have no money. They spent all their money.
As businesses continue to struggle, local workers are also doing their best to adapt.
Today the work takes time, costs, wood. We did not use wood and we did not know how to use it. The war taught us how to use it. Everything was operated by gas and everything was organized.
The water desalination plant, which was a crucial lifeline for the camp, has also suffered heavy damage.
Before the war, water produced from the plant reached 25 cubic meters per hour. Today, it produces only 15 cubic meters due to the destruction and lack of electricity, also lack of material for the plant. We cannot source them.
In the face of these challenges, all the business owners share a common hope, peace and stability.
We don't want a truce. What are we going to do with a truce? We want the war to end and peace and security to prevail for us and our neighbours, no matter how it costs. This is what I want. Peace and security. That's it. I only want this. We shall put our hands together and rebuild this country.
Amid the destruction, the people of Jabalia remain determined to persevere. Their resilience reflects a collective hope that one day the community will heal and recover.
Gaza's reconstruction will require an estimated $53 billion. That's according to a report by the World Bank Group, which says Israeli military operations have caused $49 billion in damages.
The Gaza and West Bank Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment report, jointly prepared by the World Bank, the European Union and the United Nations, provides a comprehensive analysis of the destruction, economic losses and recovery needs affecting nearly all sectors of the Palestinian economy. The report underscores the devastating impact of the conflict that began on October 7, 2023, which has resulted in extensive casualties, mass displacement, and severe damage to social, physical, and economic infrastructure, exacerbating an already dire humanitarian crisis. Residential buildings suffered the most, accounting for 53% of the total destruction. The commercial and industrial sectors follow, contributing to 20% of the losses, while essential infrastructure such as healthcare, water, and transportation makes up over 15% of the total damage.
To Sudan, where fierce fighting continues in the capital Khartoum between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, amid a deteriorating humanitarian crisis and a deadlocked political scene. Naba Muhyiddin reports from Port Sudan.
The Sudanese military is gaining control of new grounds in the capital Khartoum, in the twin city of Durman, Bahri, and also in Khartoum, the triangle capital. Since September, fierce clashes have been reported between the Sudanese army and the RSF, especially in Khartoum and northern Khartoum, Bahri. And since January 8th, the Sudanese military gained control of Wad Madani city, which is the second biggest city after Khartoum in Al Jazeera state in central Sudan, and also the military regained control of key locations in the capital, including the military headquarters and some military camps, which was besieged by the RSF for almost 2 years. as the two warring parties are confronting the capital Khartoum. Some atrocities are reported, especially from the RSF, which is allegedly targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, health facilities, and public markets. Just in the past 2 days, 200 civilians were reported to be killed by emergency law group in White Nile State. The paramilitary forces lost some grounds in Al Jazeera, in Darfur, and in Khartoum, so they are trying to penetrate towards White Nile State to open a new fighting front for them there, and to also to control main cities like Al Qitaina and some cities in White Nile State. The humanitarian situation is reported to be deteriorating in the capital due to the confrontation between the warring parties, but people are so optimistic, and actually some civilians already packed their bags and they are returning home to Al Jazeera State in Wad Madani and also to Khartoum, feeling that the relative calm situation after the military recontrolled Bahri city and Omdurman city, but the situation is still worrying for monitors and for international community, which of course call for ending the hostilities and ending besieging main cities like Khartoum and Al Fashir. For any news, Naba Muhyiddin in Port Sudan.
Turkey hosted the first round of technical negotiations between Somalia and Ethiopia towards resolving their dispute. The event focused on regional cooperation and stability and prosperity in the Horn of Africa. Turkey's foreign ministry says the row was sparked by a deal between the two countries' breakaway region of Somaliland. Last December, the leaders of the two countries met in Turkey and agreed to discuss a potential deal that upholds Somalia's territorial integrity and allows Ethiopia access to the sea. While Turkey has its largest overseas military base in Somalia, the foreign ministry says it sees a historic moment to transform challenges into opportunities. Turkey's solar power capacity surpassed 20,000 megawatts, reaching 20,400 megawatts on Sunday. This is a 39% increase from the same period last year, according to the data from the Energy and Natural Resources Ministry.
Turkey's solar energy capacity has exceeded 20,400 megawatts with the launch of rooftop, field and hybrid power plants. Solar power plants now rank as the second largest renewable energy source after hydroelectric plants, accounting for 17.5% of Turkey's total installed capacity, a significant increase from 13.8% recorded on February 16 last year. The country aims to expand its solar and wind energy capacity to 120,000 megawatts by 2035. To meet this target, it will need to add 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts of solar capacity annually, alongside other capacity enhancements. Currently, electricity produced from solar energy costs 50% less than electricity generated from coal and natural gas. Despite its lower cost, the main challenge of solar energy is that electricity production stops without sunlight. Starting in 2026, the commissioning of storage-based solar power plants will allow continuity in electricity generation from solar energy.
Kazakhstan's city of Almaty will launch new flights to China in 2025 to boost tourism. An agreement with Air China will add more flights to Beijing and a new route to Chengdu. Kazakhstan hopes this will strengthen tourism and economic ties with China. Fariza Kalamazina reports from Almaty.
Almaty is set to strengthen its air connectivity with China by introducing additional flights starting in 2025. During a recent working visit to China, Almaty Mayor Yerbolat Dosaev signed a memorandum with Air China to facilitate the launch of new routes between the two countries. The agreement includes extra flights on the Almaty-Beijing route expected to begin in June this year, as well as a new direct flight connecting Almaty and Chengdu. Currently, Almaty offers direct flights to 5 cities in China. This move is part of a broader initiative to boost tourism between Kazakhstan and China. The year 2024 was declared the Year of Tourism of Kazakhstan in China. According to the Kazakh Ministry of Tourism and Sport, over 600,000 Chinese tourists visited Kazakhstan last year, marking a 78% increase compared to 2023. In 2025, Kazakhstan will focus not only on attracting tourists, but also on strengthening cultural and economic exchange with China. The government aims to generate approximately $300 million in tourism-related revenue and attract around 500,000 Chinese visitors. A comprehensive action plan, including 37 cultural and business events, has been approved to promote Kazakhstan in the Chinese market and deepen collaboration with Chinese tourism companies. As a result, Kazakhstan has climbed from 40th to 29th place in the rankings of popular destinations for Chinese tourists. According to Daniel Serjanolo, deputy chairman of the National Kazakh Tourism Company, Kazakhstan could potentially receive at least 1 million Chinese visitors per year. However, he emphasized that the infrastructure in the cities is still adapting to accommodate the growing number of Chinese tourists. But signposts in Chinese language have already been introduced at airports in major cities to assist visitors. Astana is optimistic that the Year of Tourism will strengthen bilateral ties, opening new opportunities for cultural and business exchange. Cities like Turkestan and Aktau have also become increasingly popular among Chinese tourists, thanks to the visa-free regime introduced 2 years ago, more direct flights options and attractive promotion of Kazakhstan's tourism potential. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Pope Francis has been diagnosed with double pneumonia, further complicating his treatment as he remains in Rome's Gemelli Hospital. The Vatican has not provided details on the duration of Pope Francis's hospital stay.
The 88-year-old pontiff was admitted on February 14 after suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week. A recent chest CT scan revealed bilateral pneumonia, an infection affecting both lungs that makes breathing difficult. The Vatican said the Pope is receiving additional pharmacological therapy, but remains in good spirits. Officials also confirmed he's breathing on his own and has not been placed on a ventilator. Pope Francis has been especially vulnerable to lung infections since his youth, when he underwent surgery to remove part of one lung due to pleurisy. His condition prompted doctors to adjust his treatment for a second time, citing a polymicrobial infection of the respiratory tract, which involves multiple microorganisms and can be caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi. Dozens of faithful prayed for Pope Francis' recovery outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he remains under medical supervision. Many expressed their hopes for his swift recovery. Amid his health concerns, the Vatican has cancelled all public events on its schedule through Sunday, including key engagements for the 2025 Catholic Holy Year, which is expected to draw millions of pilgrims to Rome. The Vatican has not provided details on the duration of Francis' hospital stay, but said he will remain under medical supervision as long as necessary.
That's all for now, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.